their protege, Richard Trumka, runs it for them. They took out the anti-communist clause from the AFL-CIO's constitution and the Reds came flooding back. Now they own the SEIU, AFSCME, NEA, the AFL-CIO itself, you name it folks, they run it. So this has basically given them huge leverage over the Democrats. They started a purge in the Democratic Party after 1995. They kicked out all the Dixiecrats, the Southern Democrats, the Conservatives, the Moderates. Joe Lieberman, the senator from Connecticut, was the last one to go. And now they own that party, folks. So 20,000 communists own the Labour movement, and the Labour movement owns the Democratic Party. Got it locked up, folks. And you got all these wonderful, loyal, good Democrats out there who still think they're voting for Harry Truman and JFK. That's the sad part, people. Now, I want to give an example of how this process works, and I want to pick on one that's been in the news a lot lately, and that is comprehensive immigration reform, or amnesty. Now you have Republicans, people, and I use that word in inverted commas, who tell you that amnesty is good for the GOP. Because if you give citizenship and voting rights to 11, 12, 20 million illegals, they're all going to be so grateful they'll all become staunch Republicans, right? Just delusional. Now we know that the bulk of the Latinos, I'm not counting the Cubans, but the bulk of the Latinos in this country vote overwhelmingly Democrat. They won't change in a hurry, folks. You know, 90% of the black population has voted Democrat since the 60s. No matter what the Democrats do to enslave and degrade their communities, they still keep ticking those Ds, do they not? 80% of the Jewish population has voted Democrat for a century. No matter what the Democrats do to Israel, they still keep ticking those Ds, do they not? Maybe the Latinos, who are often socially conservative, will change in 20 or 30 years. You know, and Juan and his fellows are really working on that. But we don't have 20 or 30 years, folks. We've got till the next presidential election. Because if we lose that, the Democrats are going to dissolve the southern border and they're going to import as many voters as they want until you are done. That's their plan, folks. You imagine if most of the illegals coming across the border were Republican supporters. Obama would have the biggest fence on the border you have ever seen, folks. He'd have the National Guard of every state down there, and he'd talk about nothing but voter security, border security, and protecting the American worker from unfair competition. Would he not? Now, is it any coincidence? Why do Republicans tell you this stuff, folks? Could it be connected to the fact that the US Chamber of Commerce has spent more than $1.7 billion promoting amnesty in the last 10 years? What do you think the Chamber wants out of it, guys? Is it hard to figure out? Who picks all the oranges in your state, people? The Chamber wants cheap labour. And I'm all for profit, I'm all for business, but when you make a profit, you have to count the hidden costs. And the hidden cost of their cheap labour is the destruction of your border integrity, the endangerment of your national security, and the destruction of the rule of law in your land. They get the profits, you bear the costs. Is that fair? But the real driver of this movement is the hard left, the communists. This started out in California in the 1960s with a Communist Party member named Bert Corona, a hardcore Stalinist. He was also a Democrat. He set up the Viva Kennedy clubs, the first organised effort to bring Latinos into the Democratic Party. He also set up, mainly with church money, a whole bunch of support groups through the Southwest and Southern California to encourage illegals across the border. These groups encouraged the illegals, they got them work in factories and farms, and they got them citizenship and voting. The voting was the goal, people. Now, Corona trained a whole bunch of disciples to carry on his work. 3 of them are very prominent today, and they work together in Southern California. They have transformed that state, folks. The first one is Antonio Villagrosa, until recently the mayor of Los Angeles. A hardcore Marxist-Leninist, he used to go down to Cuba to cut sugarcane for the Castro brothers. He turned Los Angeles into a sanctuary city. He forbade the LAPD from enforcing immigration laws, and the illegals flooded in the hundreds of thousands, changed the entire demographics of the state. Second member of this group, a Communist Party supporter named Gil Cedillo. Until recently, the Democratic head of the California State Senate. Big-time amnesty activist. He got the DREAM Act pushed through in California about 3 years ago, which gave all sorts of so-called rights to the children of what they euphemistically call undocumented workers. Third member of this group, the most powerful woman in California in my opinion, another Marxist, Maria Elena Durazzo, the head of the California AFL-CIO. She is behind the massive union-driven and union-paid-for Latino voter registration drives and get-out-the-vote efforts that have added hundreds of thousands of new Latino voters to the California rolls in the last 15 years. Almost all of them Democrats. The result of this deliberate Marxist program has been to turn California from a reddish-purplish state to solidly blue. All of the electoral college votes from California, your most populous state, are now firmly in Democratic hands. Hugely important when it comes to presidential elections, folks. Now, the leader of the movement today, and I guarantee you've seen him on TV wearing a purple shirt, leading an amnesty rally. His name is Eliseo Medina. He was formerly the head of one of the heads of the SEIU union, largest private sector union in your country. He is a member of Democratic Socialists of America, a Marxist, supports the Communist Party USA, just as that was in the same bit of paper that I found out about Tony Hill, by the way. It's a former member of Obama's Latino Advisory Committee, along with several other Marxists, and works very closely with Luis Gutierrez, the rep from Illinois, who is driving the amnesty thing through the House. Gutierrez is a former member of the Puerto Rican Socialist Party, a pro-Cuban Marxist-Leninist outfit, now serving in your Congress. Medina is the man who got the amnesty bill pushed through your Senate. He's been using his union members all over your country to hold rallies, and he's been personally consulted by Mr. Obama before Obama did his latest push for amnesty and did the executive order on amnesty. Medina runs this, folks. Now I want to ask a little question. Anybody in this room, I'm not going to persecute you, anybody in this room is a former or current union member? Okay? Okay, well cast your mind back please guys. Which organisation in this country 25 years ago was leading the charge against illegal immigration? Against? The AFL-CIO, the unions. They had people on the border, folks. They were constantly lobbying Congress to increase penalties on any employer caught employing illegals. Because they saw, quite correctly, that illegals were unfair competition for union members and would drive wages and conditions down. Very logical, right? So which organisation in 2015 is leading the charge to legalise the illegals. The unions, the AFL-CIO and SCIU. So why were illegals bad for union workers 25 years ago, but now they're okay? The fact is they aren't. The change is this. Before 1995, the unions were there to represent the interests of their members. After 1995, when they were taken over by Democratic Socialists of America and the Communist Party USA, their agenda changed to promoting socialist revolution. The illegals are real bad for union workers, folks, but that doesn't matter. The unions are quite prepared to sell out their own members because the revolution comes first, folks. It took Medina 5 years of hardcore lobbying and deal-making inside the AFL-CIO, a whole bunch of arm twisting, to get them to flip their policy from anti-illegal to pro-illegal, which he achieved at their national convention in Louisiana in 2000. The Marxists did it, folks. But the real important question is this: why does he want it? Why is he doing this, people? And why has Obama risked all that political capital on executive amnesty? Well, Medina let the cat out of the bag at a big progressive conference in Washington, D.C. 3 years ago. I've got him on tape and I quote him in my book. He got up in front of the comrades and said this: passing an immigration bill, passing amnesty is the #1 priority of the progressive movement. Even before Obamacare, folks. We have to get citizenship and voting rights for our 11 million undocumented workers. And did he talk about compassion or reuniting families or giving immigrants a break or the American dream? Not a single bloody word, folks. All he said was this: in 2008, Latinos voted overwhelmingly for Obama and progressive candidates. If we stand by these people and get them citizenship and voting rights, they will stand with our movement. That will give us at least 8 million more Democratic Party votes. That will give us a governing majority, not just for the next few election cycles, but for the foreseeable future. In other words, forever. How many votes did Mitt Romney lose the last presidential election by, guys? 2.5 million votes, I believe. 8 million more Democratic Party votes, folks. The first thing that will happen is that Texas will go blue. And if you take the Electoral College votes from Texas, your second most populous state, add them to the Electoral College votes from California, which they've already got, do the math, people. It makes it practically impossible for the Republicans to ever elect another president. Ever. One party state. And if you think the Democrats are arrogant now, what do you think they'd be like with 8 million more votes in their pockets and the Republicans permanently out of office? Would this country become like France and Germany, like some deluded conservatives tell you? Or would it become like Venezuela pretty darn quickly and Cuba not long after? Because that is their plan, folks. That's why the Marxists are doing this. And you have Republicans who tell you this is good for the GOP. These are not stupid people telling you this. They can add up numbers. I bet you they can tell you exactly the total of the checks they got from the Chamber of Commerce. Yet they want to give the Democrats 8 million at least free votes. And when they open the borders, which they'll do, it'll be 20 million. With no plan to counter it, folks. What do you call it when someone sells out their country for a few dollars, knowing what it's going to do to you.
Traitor.
It's what they are, folks. It is what they are. No question. Because they know the consequences and they're still trying to do it. Now, my books also deal with the individuals, because I think these people should be held accountable for what they're doing to your country, folks. Now, I want to ask another question. Anybody in this room ever applied for a federal government job who is willing to admit it? Okay? A lot of private sector people here. Good. Well, thank you, sir. Well, what kind of job did you apply for, sir?
United States military.
Okay, well that goes without saying, but good for you. But if you applied, I should have said not counting military, because you're checked out automatically. But I'll tell you straight, any federal government job in this country, even post office, you need an FBI